Well, hello, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, last week's blog, you may remember I was dressed as a cowboy as we were talking about the Single Action Shooting Society. This week's blog immediately follows the 4th of July, and I felt it was only appropriate that I dress in my 4th of July garb that I like to put on every year. Now, in an ideal world, the 4th of July would fall on a Wednesday so that it would be consistent with this blog, but apparently the framers did not envision that I would be writing this and doing this Coffee with Stephen every year. So this particular year, I was stuck having the 4th of July on a Sunday, and I had to make sort of a calculated decision whether or not I would do a pre-4th of July blog or a post-4th of July blog, and I opted for the latter. Now, this particular 4th of July has a lot of controversy associated with it. I today heard a report from the New York Times where they have articulated that Old Glory herself is some sort of a triggering a symbol, and that's a symbol of repression and everything else. And as disgusted as I am among that entire dialogue, I don't want to focus on that. Instead, I want to focus in on why the 4th of July is important. Now, it's oftentimes been called our nation's birthday. I actually take issue with that. I don't know that the 4th of July can reasonably be considered our nation's birthday. It's certainly come to mean that. But I think that if you were actually looking for a time where our nation actually became a nation, I think you'd actually have to go to 1864 for that with the Gettysburg Address. The 4th of July was not the ratification of the Constitution. It was simply the promulgation of the Declaration of Independence. That did not create a nation. That created a confederacy of states, but states that were independent from England. Now, the Declaration itself is studied, but I don't think enough time is really spent on the underlying philosophical implications of the Declaration. The famous quote is that, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's an incredibly powerful statement, and in fact, probably the very first time that was articulated in any sort of political document that was promulgated across the planet. It was transformative. Now, I actually, in the blog, focus in on words that typically aren't looked at. I talk about self-evident because I think that's extremely important. I talk about the Creator because without that, there is no declaration. And I talk about amongst. Now, most scholars focus in on the triumvirate, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's interesting, but that's not an exhaustive list. We know because of that predicate word amongst. It is simply rights, inalienable rights, that have been articulated, but it's not a complete list. There are other rights that potentially are yet to be discovered, or certainly written down. So in any event, I hope you enjoy the blog. If you completely disagree with me, which I encourage that, by the way, please let me know. You can do so in the comments directly on the blog. You can always email me directly at stephen@artemishq.com. And as always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe. The colonies depend upon you.